In a draft where there is no such thing as certainty, in an NBA world where the tides are constantly changing, in a flux of mock drafts and big boards, I think it's high time we stop focusing on the microeconomics that are the lottery picks and start looking at the macro eye test players that aren't getting enough attention. Specifically, I would like to shine some light on a niche group of 5 players who will absolutely smash their draft spot projections, a set of players whose eye test does them so much more justice than any Bleacher Report mock draft could ever provide. I want to preface this by saying I am by no means labeling these players as franchise cornerstones or context-altering picks, but I will stand by the statement that these 5 guys will exceed their placements on big boards. And eventually, once Kevin O'Connor makes his best steal of the draft post, they'll be on that board. Let's start with some of my personal favorites. There's 3 guards in this draft that I have the utmost faith in. And after consuming so much of the tape that you could call me the CEO of Scotch, I think it's right we give them their flowers. The first man up is none other than Rob Dillingham. If you look up the word dynamic in the dictionary, you'll find a portrait of a smiley freshman guard from Kentucky just oozing with fluidity and cerebral shot making. Shiftiness to a T, Dillingham's most volatile skill suggestion is the fact that he is an absolute electric bucket getter who puts up points in bunches. He's got an arsenal that really ranges from all eras of basketball. He's got the up and down tempo and shiftiness of Brandon Jennings, Lou Williams. He reminds me of Kemba Walker with the live dribble. He's got some insanely crafty start and stop moves. He's incredibly creative around the rim, and most importantly, he's got a silky soft floater game that'll open up avenues for playmaking down the line. He shot almost 45% from 3, and boy does he like to launch them. His catch and shoot percentages are hovering around 49%, so we'll just round up to 50, and he's a more than willing off-ball mover. He's absolutely lethal coming off screens and pin downs. He's shown to be incredibly decisive when it comes to cutting to open space, so pairing him with like a playmaking big or forward might elevate his off-ball game even more. His gravity, coupled with his improved playmaking, actually gives me more of the inkling for Darius Garland than it does the typical Lou Williams comparison. Rob strikes me as a more than willing playmaker who wants to get better, but he needs to develop the sense of rhythm when it comes to passing. He's got the instincts and ability to throw some nasty dimes, but he often misses the short roll and the lob near the basket. It's the simple reads that he doesn't get. He doesn't map the court in an advanced way, but he's shown flashes of orchestrating an offense, so I wouldn't rule that out just yet. More pressing would be his short straw in the genetic lottery. 6'1" with a stubby 6'3" wingspan, coupled with less than broad shoulders and a slight frame weighing in at only 164 pounds, and you're looking at a middleweight 19-year-old who might not be able to put on more pounds to really dance in the NBA against length. He'll be a target regardless if he puts on more weight or not, but if the playmaking keeps advancing, and he's able to at least have active hands on defense, I can see a world where he makes an all-star appearance if the cards fall in the right order. I would think a team like Chicago would love him at 11. He would fit extremely well next to Kobe White, but he also makes a lot of sense as a potential reach for the Spurs, someone who could find Wemby the ball and would likely be able to take some heat off when it comes to closing games. One of my personal favorites of this draft, and I've been praying that he falls to 19 this entire time, is none other than Baylor's combo wing, 3-and-D king, Jacoby Walter. Now, don't shoot me on this one, but Walter might emerge as one of the higher ceiling 3-and-D players of this draft. I dare say, a steal if he falls below 15. He's dynamic in the sense that he knows how to hunt for his shot. It's very Norman Powell-esque of him to sidestep and pull up in someone's face. He's got a great eye for shots under pressure, and he doesn't shy away from using his up fake to get into the lane. He's good at keeping his dribble alive when needed. He can be a little quick to bite the bullet at the rim, but for the most part, he was level-headed in the lane and had some crafty finishes around the rim. I almost see shades of Chris Middleton and Desmond Bane in his arsenal. He isn't really a go-to creator with the ball in his hands, not in the sense that you'd want him to pound the ball up top, spamming combos and crosses to free himself up, but he's keenly aware of the spaces on the court he needs to occupy and when he needs to, and he times his cuts and relocations to get his shot up extremely well. He's ludicrously lethal shooting on the move, and while I don't think he'll reach the echelon of Bane and Middleton have with their handle, I do see him getting to the point where he's one of the more lethal relocate and catch shooters in the entire draft class. I think the most glaring comparison would be Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, with more of a wiggle and way more of that dog in him. Walter is fire personified. And even when he's not directly involved in the sway of a game, he finds ways to be impactful for his teammates, constantly hyping them up. He's shown to be a ruthless hustler, diving for loose balls, soaring in for offensive rebounds, and pounding his chest after emphatic dunks. Jacoby is anything but shy when it comes to leading his team emotionally, and that's an extremely important factor when you consider his upside as a 3-and-D specialist. Standing at roughly 6'5" with shoes, reaching all the way to the top shelf with a 6'10" wingspan, and a not skinny but could also add a few pounds frame of 198 pounds. His main concern from everyone in the entire world is his handle. Boy oh boy does he need to put his ball in a plastic bag and dribble it down the street because it can get rough at sometimes. It's not so much sloppy as it is loose. There isn't really anything glaringly wrong with it, but it's very vanilla. There's nothing advanced about it. There's no splash of hazelnut to his dribble package, and against NBA length and athleticism, that's going to be a challenge if he can't adjust and tighten it up a bit. He's also far from elite and an electrifying athlete. He's got a good sense of power when it comes to finishing through contact, and that'll need to translate to the other side of the ball. With his limited lateral quickness, he might actually struggle against some faster wings in the NBA, and I do think he'll be matched up against primarily twos. Just for the sake of argument, if he does play the 3, the 6'10" wingspan potentially solves some problems on defense, but I wouldn't bank on it. However, you can't teach his instinct to jump passing lanes and map the floor on the defensive end, so that could potentially translate to orchestrating an offense as the secondary playmaker down the line. Alright, this one might get controversial, but I don't give a fuck about his season at USC. I take it with a huge asterisk grain of salt. He broke his hand. He had to deal with Bronny being jerked off by the media and usurping his spotlight in what was supposed to be a draft-rising season, and it ended up being the polar opposite. Forgive me for going full eye test mode here, but we have a tank of a point guard walking around like he's not a human highlight reel. You think the Trojans were scary? Isaiah Collier coming down the lane is scary. Mr. Collier with a full head of steam and a big in his way are scary. Few things are more certain than Isaiah's physical tools and his readiness to use them. He's 6'3" in shoes with a T-Rex 6'4" wingspan, but coming in at a sturdy 205. He's definitely a perfect blend of bully and finesse that draws a lot of comparisons to Eric Bledsoe, Baron Davis. Hell, personally, I even see a lot of younger Oladipo in his game. But it's more about him being able to combine his speed and girth with finesse at the rim that's going to level up his game. He's a volatile playmaker. And when I say volatile, I mean that in the most literal of senses. He is a daredevil of a passer who forces the issue, oftentimes to his own demise. But I admire the idea in a lot of these kind of deliveries. He wants to make these passes go through. He wants to puppeteer an offense, but he often loses track of defenders and their awareness, and it's as though he's practicing how to throw some of these slick dimes mid-game. And that kind of playmaking would be great if he was having reps in the G League to start his career. The hours of film tell me one thing, that his floor is tantalizing and his potential ceiling is probably better than majority of the lottery. In the right situation, Isaiah could flourish into one of the best players in this draft class. And on the flip side, in the wrong situation, that being like half of the NBA, he could end up being exactly what everyone is writing him off to be. Overrated, not ready, unproven, and shaky at best. This might even be more controversial than the last, but next up we have Kel'el Ware. Oh my fucking god, the proposition on this one is outstanding. Picture for just a second, a 6'11", 230 20-year-old with a 7'4" wingspan that put up 16 and 10 with 2 blocks a game and shot 42% from 3. Wouldn't that kind of prospect make you cream your jorts? What if I told you that he's the kind of vertical spacer that you'd see in the dunk contest? Impeccable timing when it comes to cleaning the glass, handles interior passes and drop-offs with ease. He has super soft touch on little hook shots and floaters. He handles getting into his jumper with ease. It's got an insane release point, and he's great at choosing his spots to fire it. He's flashed some genius pick and roll moments that have led me to believe that he could excel with the right point guard. He slides extremely well against wings and has great lateral mobility that translates on both ends of the floor. He's shown he can be a willing passing hub in the post, and that'll only level up once he gets to the NBA. He's a real Jarrett Allen, Miles Turner hybrid. Hell, there's even a little glimpse of Portland LaMarcus Aldridge in there if you really want to boil it down. So, with all of that, he must be a surefire lottery pick, right? Well, visually, he's stunning and super appealing. But once you rub on some paint thinner, once you really peel back the layers, you can sort of pick out why some people aren't as high on him than most. First of all, his motor. At times, he looks like he's your friend's tricked out GR Supra. Lethal, explosive, ready to peel off at any second and leave everyone else in the dust. And at other times, he looks like a 1986 Nissan shitbox that'll put forth ho-hum effort at best and will disappear on you when he needs it most. His attitude is something an NBA coach will absolutely rip out of him, but it's definitely a cause for concern. He has almost no fight or flight instinct, it seems like. Do you remember when LaMelo was first bursting out on the scene? He often played like he was trying to avoid embarrassing himself or really put his foot on the gas to avoid giving potential highlights to another player. Ware plays exactly like that sometimes, and I worry that at the next level, an NBA coach isn't going to have the patience to deal with it, and he'll end up getting the boot before he's able to flash what he's truly capable of. Now we come to the obvious choice, but only recently has he been getting some draft attention. The Warden of Guantanamo Bay, the head of security at Arkham Asylum, Ryan Dunn. Let's start this off by saying Ryan is irrefutably the best defender in this class, and it's not close. The epitome of Swiss Army knife on defense, he legitimately guards 1 to 5, and with 3.5 stocks a game, it's not hard to see the eventual comparisons of Andre Roberson, Herb Jones, a little splash of Otto Porter Jr. or Iggy, but the real key is that at 6'6", with a 7'1" wingspan, he's an elite rim protector when he's in the roamer spot. Grabbing 7 boards a game helps him slide down to the 4 at times, and while he isn't a decision maker on offense, he's far from a liability. He finishes extremely well at the rim with one of the longest highlight reels you've probably ever seen from a sophomore out of Virginia. He's got that drive and that motherfucking dog in him that'll help him stay on an NBA floor even with a limited offensive package. And his defense, obviously, is something that you can anchor your entire team around. He's not an offensive generator by any means. He lacks the ability to create. He couldn't throw a ball into the ocean, and defenses know this. He'll be disrespected with the ball in his hands, but he knows this as well, so more often than not, he's going to be looking to keep the ball moving the entire time. I would liken him to Matisse Thybulle more than any other comparison, and the good news is that Matisse learned how to hit a jumper, so maybe there's some hope for Ryan after all. Those, in my humble opinion, are the 5 players that I can safely say pass the eye test. Players who I can hold on to my stocks for and watch as they inevitably fall down the draft board into the laps of undeserving teams who couldn't pour draft picks out of a hula hoop if they tried. I leave you with the 5 irrefutable of the unpredictable NBA draft.